Welcome to a very special episode of the Memeingful Discourse podcast. Because this video is so long, we're going to do you a favor and break down the major topics in the description below. So if you want to see what's interesting, click down there.
And on this episode about trigger warnings, we're going to give you a trigger warning that we're talking about lots of different issues ranging from PTSD, bullying, the Holocaust, gender identities, the wage gap, and sexual harassment and rape. So be warned. Hey there, folks. This is Memeingful Discourse, a podcast about memes where we try to convince little Jimmy Memer that his actions and his memes do in fact have consequences. Today we're talking about trigger warnings and getting triggered. My name's Alec.
I'm Ryan.
And here we are. Whoa.
And here we are, right into the show. Let's get right into the memes. Oh, I did it.
Thick of it. Oof. Okay. This is. I'm just gonna say I'm a little nervous about this show. I'm a little nervous about this episode because these are some sensitive topics that we might get into here.
Yes, this may be the first episode where we completely disagree on some small parts of this entire scheme here. So this
I'm excited
could be
about. I like that we might disagree about something. I think we're the kind of people who can disagree and have a respectful conversation about how we disagree without it becoming a flinging mudfest of crap and hatred. I think we're good people. Maybe
that's what you think now, but we'll find out in about 15 minutes. This may end our friendship. So here we go. Here's our first slide. Just I mean, many people watching this may already know this is Ethan from H3H3 with his triggered face, and he's done a number of videos about being triggered. So yeah, this is the sort of meme that we're going to be talking about here. Do you want me to go to the next slide here, buddy?
I mean, I guess we don't need to talk about H3H3 pretending to be triggered.
No, yeah. This is right. This is just a farce. This is for a goof and a gaff and a laugh. So
he's having a goof at other people's expense here, and I hope it's all in good taste. But let's talk a little bit about triggered and getting triggered. What is this? What does it mean? Well, the idea of getting triggered, we kind of already talked about in the first episode. We talked about the fact that your ideas and your words have consequences. We're trying to convince little Jimmy that he can't just meme and ignore his consequences and like absolve himself from guilt by just saying, well, they don't have consequences. Yeah, they do. You're just choosing not to think about them. And you can say some pretty mean things. You can say some pretty insensitive things that bring people to a very negative headspace. You can remind people about their trauma with your words, and that can trigger them, and that's not cool.
That much I agree on.
Okay.
Like the technical definition of triggered, at least like in the medical term, is something that triggers an event from your past or triggers a memory. Like before this trigger meme became the big deal, and you can see on the screen here some other examples of triggered memes. Like it actually meant like you say you've been in the Vietnam War. This is a good example because even that's kind of a joke now. People say, "Oh, I remember back when I was in Nam," even though you weren't even alive. But whatever. People that were in the Vietnam War, like some of my uncles were in that war, and there are certain things that will trigger them to have these vivid memories of when they were there with bullets flying overhead and having to kill other people so they didn't die themselves, would send them into either a rage, or they may just break down crying, or and you don't know why. It was just something just triggered them, and that's literally what triggered meant before it was taken.
I mean, it could be something that you hadn't thought about. It could be something specific to their experience. I mean, I think a lot of times you can kind of figure out what triggered someone because, like, we were just talking about guns, and Uncle Kevin kind of left the room and we heard some crying from the bathroom. He was in Vietnam. Like, guns are traumatizing. PTSD is a real thing. I feel like all right, before we go any further, I just want to make a quick comment about my philosophy and where I'm coming from, just to, like, just make sure, just kind of iron out those wrinkles ahead of time and just keep the same page train rolling where we're in agreement.
Okay.
All right. So PTSD is a real thing. People experiencing war and hardship and serious trauma, sexual harassment, rape is a real thing.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that other people's lesser traumatic experiences aren't traumatic for them. I feel like the negative headspace that people can get into can be relative to their frame of reference. Like, if you remind someone of the most traumatic event in their life, which could have been bullying, like it could have been schoolyard bullying, right? That still reminds someone of the most traumatic event of their life. They didn't experience war, they didn't experience rape, but they did experience something that was traumatic. I think it's legitimate to try to be sensitive to the kinds of things that, maybe bullying isn't something where we have to give a trigger warning for every instance of bullying ever, but it's still something that people are sensitive about, and it's still something that, like, I don't think it makes for a funny joke.
So what was going through my mind when you said that was, here's how it, say, like, someone was bullied when they were in 4th grade. Okay. And that was the most traumatic thing up to that point in their life, or up to the point in their life. Say they're like 22 now, 25, whatever. They're long out of school, long past that 4th grade year. That was the most traumatic thing for them. I feel like what the triggered meme has done, and I think you did touch on this, it kind of trivialized that event, but the people that use the triggered meme view the person who is triggered by something like that, or triggered because of something like that, view that person as weak-minded and, like, unable to cope with something that to them is, like, not a big deal. Is that is that how you see this meme being used? It's like,
yes. So I think this is the perfect episode for Lil Jimmy. Like, we are getting into the reason why we started this show. So Lil Jimmy might think it's funny as a joke to say, "Oh, I poked fun at Billy," and Billy was like, "Triggered." Oh, look at Billy, he was all triggered. Okay, Jimmy. So you said something that I feel like you, in a lot of these instances, there's an example of. Let me start over.
Okay. Wait, can I pause for a second? I want to break your train of thought.
Do it.
The fact that we're having such a tough time coming to terms, like coming up with the words to express this, says two things. Number one, we don't script out this show, so this is just like us talking. But number two, the amount of and Alec, you used this word before we started recording, nuance. If you don't know what nuance is, if you may be watching this, you should look that up. It's like the very subtle, like, things at play here that people don't really think of when you think, oh, 4th grade bullying, big deal. What's a big deal? That doesn't bother me. Well, there's a lot more to it than probably just that. And you got to think about the number of people involved in this is not just that one person.
Yeah.
There was like that to that 4th grade kid who was being bullied. He was looking up to adults who were supposed to kind of take care of him while he's at school. Maybe those people saw it and did nothing. So now he's got another problem with like trust issues with older people or even people his age now.
Yeah,
like,
or maybe they blamed the victim. Maybe they said, well, maybe you shouldn't wear such a dorky outfit to school and you wouldn't get bullied.
Yeah, another part of nuance. Like this whole topic is very nuanced. The word of the day. If this was the Pee Wee Herman show, we would have to scream every time we say nuance. Yeah, yes. Okay, so now I totally derailed your other thought there, but I'm sorry. That's Thomas the Tank Engine derailed, triggered.
Yeah. My thought might come back to me. I don't feel like it was too crucial to the discussion. So you had said that there was. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of this is going to get cut out because I'm just trying to remember what you had said before I'd started speaking.
Oh no, this is live, man. This is live.
No edits, no cuts?
I don't know. What do the people want? I mean, we cut the first episode a little bit. The second one was straight through, but how about if I just advance this slide a little bit?
Okay.
To this next image here. Maybe that'll help us like come up with some more discussion topics here.
Sure.
It's an image of a sign that says "Keep out, sewage gap, contaminated water, no swimming," and then a fine young lady. I mean, I don't want to assume gender here, but what I assume is a lady looking at it. But in the next part, it focuses in on the wage gap part of sewage gap, and then it says "triggered" with her face on there.
She zoomed right into that part that triggered her, and she couldn't let go. Wage gap, triggered. So here we have, I guess, the classic triggered meme, which involves this fine person's face, who is Melody Hensley. It became a story in April 2014 that Melody claimed her PTSD was caused by cyberbullying. And she wrote about the seriousness of online harassment and cyber stalking and cyberbullying. And she kind of became the poster child for the people who meme this kind of shit to kind of have a face to attach oversensitivity to, I guess. They're trying to minimalize and dismiss her experience and say that being cyberbullied isn't traumatic enough of a life event to warrant getting PTSD, I guess, which I think is total bullshit. But that whole shit aside, I think this meme is hilarious because there is a real disparity in wages between men and women, right? It's called the wage gap.
Oh no, that's another topic entirely.
Ooh, it's another topic, but this is a real thing, right? Like, women earn something like 77 cents on the dollar. Does that sound about right to you? That a man earns on average?
That's the statistic that I hear all the time. But
you hear 77 cents on the dollar. I think it's something like 66 cents on the dollar if you're a black woman, and something like 55 cents on the dollar if you're a Latina woman. Like, it gets smaller and smaller the more like intersectional you get with it, which is, again, like, it's not just a feminist issue, but it's a bias issue in general. And yeah, it's terrible. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It does make some sense. Like, the wage gap, at least the way that I have read and listened and understand it, the wage gap, of course, we can't say the wage gap is only because they're women. Men versus women. That means that we pay the women less because they're women and we don't like women. Because if that were the case, then everyone would hire women because you could pay them less. And you would save a ton of money by just hiring women because you can pay them less because they're women. Like, gender is not the only thing that causes this wage gap. And I don't know how, like, far we want to go into economics when this is about trigger.
Yeah, we don't want to get too far into economics. The Freakonomics podcast, to plug another podcast, has a good episode on, I think that's called The True Story of the Gender Wage Gap. I enjoyed that episode. There is, like, a little bit of nuance to this issue.
You guys can play along at home, too. When you hear nuance, you can go,
So I think the one confounding thing that I heard that explains some of this gap is that women do, on average, in general, seem to have a preference for jobs that have more flexibility, jobs that allow them to choose their own schedule, and jobs that let them take breaks here and there. And I mean, I personally value flexibility like that. That doesn't, that means on average, I would get paid a little bit less. And I think that there is a small fraction of that remaining 23 cents on the dollar is explained by that. Not all of it. There is still more to the story than just that. And it is an issue that has worked its way into our society due to the kind of insidious bias of I think it's just an issue of the patriarchy having had for a long extent a kind of monopoly on working, and we kind of have this weird implicit bias that there's nuance, like, sensitivity. This is an issue that we need to resolve, and we can't just say, well, it exists and this isn't our problem to fix. Like, this is an issue.
Yes. I mean, like, I have heard that too, that even after accounting for all economic factors, there still seems to be a bias against it, which I don't know. And in my mind, I think, is that because of the way the studies are conducted, or is that, like, because you can frame a question a certain way to get a certain answer. Like, are these studies totally, like, legit? Because I'm not an expert on this sort of thing. But, yeah, that just food for thought there. Memeingful Discourse audience. Maybe someone down in the comments is an expert. I don't know.
I hope so, because we certainly aren't.
Yeah, so let's go to this next slide here, which I just kind of flashed on the screen there for a second.
Let's check it out.
This is a fun one, and it's relevant to today because of Pokemon. Is this from Pokemon Yellow, perhaps, or is this in all of them in the Game Boy days?
I think there is. I mean, I know this is more recent than Blue or Red because there's some color on Professor Oak here.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking it was Yellow, but I only really played Yellow, so
I don't know what entry in the Pokemon series this is from, but this looks like Professor Oak, and it's kind of the intro question. I think maybe even before he asks you what your name is, he asks you, "Are you a boy or are you a girl?"
Oh my gosh! And then below that, there is an image of which was it Hensley?
Melody Hensley.
Hensley going triggered because what happened? Professor Oak just assumed that you were either a boy or a girl.
Right? There's no other options, right? There's no such thing as people who are non-binary who have a gender fluid identity. That's not a thing, right?
Wrong. See, maybe at the top of this episode we said we were going to disagree on things, and to some extent, like, I think a lot of these, like, oh, I'm not a boy or a girl, I'm like, I can go either way, I identify as this, I identify as that. To me, I can't understand it. And this is just the philosopher in me, but like I can see, I accept the fact that people think that, but I can't understand it. And like, for me to say, if I were to sit here and say, no, you have to choose boy or girl, that's the way it is, like, I can't do that. That's just not part of the way I see things. But I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't know why this is a thing.
I mean, I think that speaks to your ignorance more than anything else. No offense.
Whoa!
Didn't mean to trigger you just then.
My neck came at my neck, son. That's what the kids would say.
Yeah, I mean, I can spend a couple minutes like trying to explain non-binary gender identities to you. I don't think that's the point of this episode. But I think suffice it to say that that gender is something that you experience, right? Gender is something that you feel masculine or you feel feminine. You feel like a boy or you feel like a girl. Some people don't feel like either. And that's okay.
That's the one I don't get.
Some people who are, I mean, okay, so I think you can say that you get people who were assigned male at birth, but they feel female.
Well, yeah, because
and we would call that transgender.
When I was studying philosophy, I did take a class on feminist ethics, but they called it philosophy and gender so people didn't know that it's feminist ethics. So that when people showed up for the first class and the professor's like, yeah, we just name it that so people don't prejudge it based on feminism. But yeah, that's what it was. But it was like really cool because
I mean, you gotta get the fedora lords in somehow. You gotta hook them so that they can get educated and they won't just refuse to take the class out of
a lot of
their neck beard is too long to sign up.
Yeah, a lot of the guys in there were like, oh, I took this as an elective because I thought it was about sex.
I thought we got to fuck in this class.
Yeah, I didn't know this was going to teach me something about understanding others. But yeah, sex, at least in like the very boiled down idea, sex is like male or female organs on your body. But gender is definitely something that is a culture thing. It's a learned state of mind, like, or maybe not even learned. I don't know. Like, I've never identified as a girl before, so I don't think I will start anytime soon. But I can imagine that growing up, maybe I wanted to play with this or that. And, I mean, that's another simplified point of it. Like, girls have to play with dolls. That means you're a girl. And boys play with Tonka trucks. That means we're guys. Like, that's a problem, too, even trying to explain this thing. But, yeah, gender is not something that is fixed. It's a societal thing.
Okay, so let me just throw one more thing at you, because you said you understand genitalia as a biological reality. So one of the more recent additions to the acronym SOUP of queerness and gender identity, right? You've heard of LGBTQ. We've also added I and A. So you might not be familiar with this, are you?
Well, just the other day I was thinking, I get L, I get the G.
Okay, all right.
I get the B, and I get the T.
All right.
But why do you have to throw in queer? Because isn't that like just strange? Like all of them are queer, like queer, sensitive issue. But like I'm just curious.
Okay, I appreciate your curiosity. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay. So queer is kind of an umbrella term, right? Queer encapsulates people who don't fall into the binary, but aren't necessarily bi or trans or gay, right? So someone might describe himself as pansexual and call himself queer, or someone might be any number of the other acronyms and also call themselves queer. It's an umbrella term that means you're non-binary in some way.
Okay.
All right, so I stands for intersex, LGBTQIA. A stands for asexual. Intersex refers to people whose biological reality is not male or not female. So some people are born with genitalia that look a little bit different, and that's their biological reality. One example is Klinefelter's, which is a chromosome. It's a chromosome condition where you have two X's and a Y. Right. So for years and years, in medical science, we kind of lumped these into male people who were born with Klinefelter's because they technically do have something that resembles a penis. It's an issue, I think, to decide what someone's gender is before. I mean, especially in the case of intersex people who don't have clear genital kind of delineations. Like in general, like I don't want to gender anyone until I know what gender they prefer, right? In general, I try to use they, them pronouns until I know a person wants to use he, him, or she, her. It becomes even fuzzier with intersex people where, like, should they even be assigned a gender at birth? Like, it's easier to kind of shoehorn people into genders based on their biological reality vis-a-vis double X or XY chromosomes. But when someone is double XY, does it even make sense to try to shoehorn them into one or the other?
Yes, that's quite a bit of nuance there.
There's a lot of nuance there.
Let me share how this is working out, to go back onto the triggered memes, right? The overuse of this term where it's like it's been misappropriated, right? So as a substitute, I'm around a bunch of high school kids a lot of the day. And when you just said, I'm pointing over here to the screen because that's where he is. When you just said that you don't like to assume people's gender, well, nowadays, that's kind of a joke among the teenagers because they're a meme culture, right? So if someone says guys or girls or him or her or whatever,
hey guys,
the memer in the class will say, "Did you just assume their gender?" And it's like a big joke now because of people overusing this triggered idea. Like, it all snowballed into, like, now everything is marginalized because, hey, it's funny on the internet. It gets the thumbs up on the Snapchat. I don't know, does it? Reddit, maybe, probably more so. Whatever. But, like, yeah, this is how it plays out in real life.
Oh, it's a joke. Ha ha ha. It's a funny joke that, like, you misgendered someone. Ha ha ha. So funny. I mean, here's the thing is, like, you can legitimately offend someone by misgendering them. And I try not to go out of my way to offend anyone. Like, that would kind of make me an asshole. I think, like, as long as no one's actually offended, you can be like, you can be playful with, like, oh, that's so offensive. But, like, I don't know. It's not a very thoughtful joke to me. Like, you're pretending to be offended. Okay, I get it. It's not that funny.
It's not that funny. And then, so here's
tagline for Memeingful Discourse. It's not that funny.
It's not that funny, Jimmy. What's wrong with you? So how about this idea? If if someone is offended, like say I meet someone for the first time, and to my eyes, he or she is a he or a she, very clearly. And
Someone can present more as male or female, and that's kind of the language that we use. Someone presents as male or presents as female to your eye.
Right. But say like maybe they're I don't know, for whatever reason I misidentify their gender and they call me on it and they get angry, they get triggered. Like, is it wrong for me to think that's their fault for getting triggered? Because like, how am I supposed to know what you identify as internally? Like, why should you get mad at me? Why can't you just politely say, oh no, I'm actually this? Like, maybe that won't work for everyone, but at least if I was ever in that situation where someone was coming at me, someone got triggered because I misidentified them, like I would be appalled. I'd be like, why are you acting this way? Why can't you just have a reasonable conversation? You are proving the meme right now. That's what you are doing. You are being that person.
Okay, so I have thoughts. I think there's a reality to people being perhaps a little too easily offended, perhaps a little too oversensitive. Like, I want to be as sensitive as possible. I don't want to offend anyone. But I think you can make an honest mistake in gendering someone every now and then. Like, I think we're at, like, the reason why this is a thing with students, with the young people, is because I feel like we're at a cusp in our culture where we're recognizing that gender is a construct. We're recognizing that non-binary genders are a thing, that people have preferred pronouns that they might want to use regardless of how they present or regardless of what gender they were assigned at birth. And like I said, like, it's easy for me to just kind of change my default and use they, them pronouns. If I use they, them pronouns by default, then I'm not misgendering anyone until I find out that they're offended by using they, them pronouns. But the thing is that, like, if you accidentally trigger someone, and if someone is, like, so offended that they can't, like, sometimes you just have to walk away, right? Like, in preparation for this, you showed me the H3H3 video with someone claiming sexual harassment, and they would not drop it. They would not let it go. They were screaming at the top of their lungs. This guy just calmly walked away, and the rest of the video is security trying to get this person to, like, lower their voice and, like be civil. Like, I feel like the baseline for human interaction is, like, let's be civil. Like, can we at least be civil? And then, like, we can take it from there. Like, if someone's not being civil to you, if they're so offended, and, like, hopefully you accidentally offended them, but if they can't respond to you in a civil way, you might just need to walk away and say, like, I'm sorry, I can't, this isn't a productive conversation anymore.
Yes, and that those people that are completely, I don't want to use the word insane.
You don't. You really don't. You actually don't at all.
I don't at all. But those people that act that way are the reason why, big part of the reason why this sort of meme gains traction, because those people get the attention the most, and everyone associates triggered with those people, and it becomes a big deal. And it's funny to laugh at the crazy person who's acting crazy, even though, like, maybe what was said beforehand was legitimate, but they're just taking it a little too far. Like,
yeah, like, maybe you shouldn't have said that, but I mean, let's be civil, right?
Yeah, why can't you have a reasonable conversation, like a rational conversation? See, that's the thing. You got to be rational. You got to think together and have a dialogue. There's a word we haven't used yet, dialogue. It's all about the give and the take, the yin and the yang, having the talks about these things and what they mean that helps people be civil instead of just flying off the handle and throwing frying pans at each other. Like, that's not going to solve anything. It's
not. I do want to address the use of language vis-a-vis insane or crazy to discuss people who might be suffering from mental health issues.
Yeah, sorry. If you've made it this far into this episode, I apologize. I don't mean to offend, but those are they're words. And I'm saying the word just, like they're just words, get over it. So now I'm perpetuating the problem here by making it sound like you're just get over it. It's not a big deal. Okay, it's a big deal, but just get over it. I wanted to see your face there.
Triggered.
How about what happens if I click the next slide? Maybe let me try to dig out of this one right now. Oh yeah, here we go. This gentleman is sipping a beverage with a angry glare on his face. And Alec, you can read this and explain what's going on here.
So this is the I don't give a fuck about college anymore meme, where like this college senior is dismissing his gender studies class because the book has a trigger warning. And while sipping his beer and furrowing his brow, he says, "I will not read this book. It hurts my feelings. I'm a sensitive boy, and this book hurts my feelings. I can't discuss gender studies because I'm offended by being a considerate person who doesn't offend anyone." Ooh.
That's
okay.
A sticky wicket.
I mean, like, this meme symbolizes and gives us the picture of that asshole who refuses to even be a part of the conversation because we're trying to establish ahead of the conversation that this is a sensitive conversation. Right? So this has become an issue on college campuses. That some institutions and some professors have made it a point of giving students trigger warnings when there are sensitive materials that they'll be discussing in class. In your history class, like, you're gonna read about the Holocaust, assuming you get through all of history. It's a thing that some people are very sensitive to, understandably so, with, family histories of people in their family who may have died, who may have been tortured, who may have experienced horrible atrocities. So the purpose of, and maybe this is a point where we disagree, to me the purpose of the trigger warning given by a college professor is to say this topic of conversation is going to be sensitive, and if it's not a conversation that you feel ready for, maybe we can figure out another way for you to join the discussion. But like, for someone who is sensitive to that, like, I think it's legitimate that you might need to steel yourself. You might need to ready yourself for that conversation. Like, you don't want to walk in and suddenly, without any expectation, be confronted with something that's very traumatic.
Yeah.
Are you still with me, Ryan?
I'm with you. I'm sorry. I had my phone was going crazy, and now I put the trigger back up on the screen. So, see, that sort of thing bugs me. Like, all of that. Because if you're all of that with Keenan and Kel. I mean, no, that's different show. They were in there though. Anyway, on a college campus, right? A place of higher learning, a place where you're supposed to freely exchange ideas and learn new things and have a dialogue with people.
in a civil and hopefully intellectual way.
Yeah. To say, oh, I can't go to class today because we're going to talk about the Holocaust, and that's really traumatic to me because my grandfather or great-grandfather or grandmother or whoever was there, and it's just like, and I'm Jewish, so it's like kind of really sensitive to me. Like, I don't get that, because like how can you just discount that lecture or that series or that whatever of history and say, oh, I can't study that or I can't talk about that because it's going to bother me, and I don't want my feelings hurt, so I'm just going to pretend like it's not there.
Yeah, I feel like there are two things. One is that for some people, it's an issue where you are capable of having that conversation, but you don't want to be presented with that conversation unexpectedly. It's a conversation with such an emotional weight to it that you need to process your emotions ahead of time in preparation for the conversation to be able to contribute in an intellectual, meaningful way. And I totally understand that. I feel like that is the vast majority of cases. I feel like people just want to know what to expect entering a conversation that may be about extremely sensitive subjects that are so sensitive that little Jimmy Memer isn't even going to touch them, right? Like, this is a serious topic. Fans of the show know that little Jimmy doesn't talk about 9/11 and he doesn't talk about the Holocaust. Like, those are unmemeable. It's so unmemeable that we need to give people a little heads up that this is what the conversation's going to be about. Right?
See, I think you may have got me there, because I don't immediately disagree with that. Like, that's the reason why we have road signs, like, alert, curve ahead. You might want to know that this sharp curve is coming so you don't crash your car off the cliff that's ahead. So that's like a warning sign. So to give people trigger warnings is kind of like having road signs. So maybe it's not that big of a deal as long as it doesn't stop the dialogue from happening.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think trigger warnings are not meant to say we can't talk about this, but it's meant to say this topic is about to happen. And if you need some time to prepare yourself, like if you need a heads up about this topic of conversation, you might want to excuse yourself for a little bit and then rejoin once you're ready. It's not saying don't talk about this ever, right? It's saying we're about to talk about something sensitive. Get ready.
Right. So maybe this is an instance where the people that do say, I'm not reading this book because it will hurt my feelings, are the ones that get all the attention. And that's why I think the concept of trigger warnings has a negative connotation, because the people that use it in that way to like say, I'm not going to talk about it at all, get the attention. And people say, yeah, those people are evil and trigger warnings are bad because it makes people not face up to the facts of life or whatever.
Yeah, just grow up. Just grow up and be an adult. It's college. You're supposed to be an adult. Just grow up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, trigger warnings, I guess, aren't that bad as long as the people don't, refuse to acknowledge a certain topic. Join the dialogue. The nuanced dialogue. Do we have another slide on here? I don't even know.
We have a few slides. Like, this is a beefy. I feel like this is going to be a two-parter.
Yeah, we might see. So what we're going to probably have to do, and we'll make another announcement afterwards that I'll paste in the beginning of the episode. We're already like 45 minutes into this, so we'll have to spend some time and put little things in the description where you can go straight to topics in the timeline, like if you want to do that. because listening to this on YouTube for now is going to be tough to have it open for over an hour. I mean, once we start uploading these to actual podcast sites, you know, if we ever want to spend that money, then it'll be easier because you can just put it in your pocket and listen to it over the course of the day.
Yeah, then you're just tuning in on your way to work, and it's easy breezy, no problem.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll do that again at the end of this episode, but I'll put it in the beginning so people are aware this is a long one and there are things in the description to like go straight to spots. Anyway, we're almost here towards the end, and now we're into the world of Tumblr.
The world of Tumblr, i.e. the world of people obsessing over trigger warnings. On both sides, people like putting trigger warnings on everything that they can possibly put trigger warnings on, and people also getting really butthurt that there's a trigger warning at all. So let's I'm just gonna read this and I want you to respond, right? So here's Meta Pianicist on Tumblr says the lulled triggered meme is only considered funny in a society where mentally ill people are devalued. It relies on a context where mentally ill people's needs are considered ridiculous. Additional fact, the meme has made mentally ill people afraid to use the word trigger with their doctors and therapists. It's literally making mentally ill people less able to access care. Defending this meme with that knowledge is blaming mentally ill people for being hurt by ableism.
Whoo! So I was with it for the first half, I think. Like his first post where he says the meme is only funny where mentally ill people are devalued. Okay, I can kind of get on board with that. Like, because as we've been talking about, it is at the expense of a lot of subtle things, and it's people are marginalized, trivialized, all those good ized words. But then he went on to add additional fact. This is a fact, according to him. The memes made mentally ill people afraid to use the word triggered because, you know, it's making, and it's like, what?
Because their therapist is going to respond to them, oh, this guy was triggered, lol.
Yeah.
Grow up. Just grow up. I'm your therapist. So, my advice is just grow up.
So can we like flash forward into the future here? Like, some of the people in high school right now could potentially become doctors and therapists in the future. And when they have their patients come in who say, Doc, like, I had a really bad breakdown the other day about my 4th grade bullying, and, you know, I was like right back there with my face down in the mud. It was terrible. Like, are they going to sit there and say, well, you totally got triggered, you know? Back in 2016 when I was in high school, we would call that lol triggered. And then and then I'll write a prescription. Like, I don't follow along with him up to that point because I'm not in that world, right? Maybe this is, again, my ignorance coming out, but I've never been in a place where I am triggered in the way that maybe a legitimately mentally ill person would be. I don't want to say that on the podcast, but I have a family member who has some traumatic things in the past, and like I've seen firsthand what it's like to be triggered, because this person is legitimately mentally ill to some degree, like diagnosed and all that. But I don't like if this is words, terms are struggling to come out because of nuance. But on the on the face value of this statement by the Meta Pianicist, I'm like, that's nonsense. That just sounds like he's stretching to justify, like, make himself sound holier than everyone else who uses this meme. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
I think that a good therapist is going to make that session an extremely safe space. Like, your therapist is never gonna bully you for saying the word triggered. I mean, but there is a good point here that the lol triggered meme can be used to bully people who are triggered by bullying in a way that, like, the triggered meme can kind of be a trigger itself. Like, it's almost the worst kind of meta meme in that it can be weaponized against people who are traumatized by bullying. Right?
Whoa.
Like, that's not cool.
Whoa. Did you just say weaponize a meme?
A weaponized meme. I went there.
Wow, that's I wonder if that's a first in the entire like world. Did we just create something? Let's weaponize our memes and attack.
I mean, I don't
heavy.
think that's. I don't know if someone's referred to a weaponized meme before. I have to think so, because like that's almost what little Jimmy Memer was talking about. Was like, he doesn't care if he's using his memes to bully people. Like, he doesn't care if like his memes are hurtful weapons, as long as he gets a laugh out of it.
Yeah. I just had a flash in my head, like, so the lol triggered meme, if someone is triggered by bullying and they're being bullied and then they get mad and then everyone starts shouting, oh, you're getting triggered, trigger, like, that just makes it worse. So it's like it's a snowball, right?
Yeah.
Be like, yeah. And then from that point on, instead of just calling the person ugly or saying, oh, you four eyes, you're so dumb, you could just like look at them and say, are you going to get triggered? And that'll be enough. They'll just be like instantly triggered by the triggering words.
Yeah, like that is like the stickiest thing about doing this meme, about talking about it. Even like by entering into the discussion about this meme, like, we could potentially be triggering people. Like, there's might need to be a trigger warning on this episode that it's about trigger warnings.
Yeah, maybe that's another thing we'll have to record at the end here, huh?
Okay, so do you want to jump to the response to this?
Yeah, so, and then being Tumblr, there was a nice response to this. And I'm sure this is more, there's more than just these, but this is what I could find readily. I'll go ahead and read this. This is in direct response to the meta pianist's thing we just read. So the first person says, well, maybe if Tumblrinas didn't use it so mindlessly, I mean, most of the so-called triggers are pretty much just things that make these people uncomfortable. Their cavalier use of a term normally used for PTSD case is what causes people to mock it in the first place. Let's just go like one and then one and then one. So let's talk about this first part first.
Okay. So I talked about this at the top of the show. Like, I feel like what this commenter doesn't understand is that people's traumas are relative to their entirety of their experience, right? Someone can have a trauma that's a very deep trauma for them. They're just avoiding things that make them uncomfortable. This could legitimately be, like, bullying could legitimately be the worst trigger that someone has. Like, I feel like it's not just making this person uncomfortable, it's making them extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like it could literally be transporting them in their mind back to that moment. It'll be like Groundhog Day, like reliving that same event over and over and over again. And that's not good for anyone. There are some things in my life that I wouldn't want to relive, even in your mind, because your mind's a powerful place. Like, dreams are can be very real. And memories are just like dreams in a way, and they affect you emotionally, sometimes physically, and like that's not a happy place to be.
That could send someone into a daymare.
A daymare, yeah.
You don't want that.
It's like a nightmare, but in the day, in case you can't figure that out.
In case that portmanteau wasn't clear enough for you.
Yeah. And there's this thing that one of my psychology professors used to say that I'd never heard it until I was in his class in college about the term fair or fairness, because
Okay.
Alec, you've been saying that that might be the most traumatic thing to them.
Yeah.
Well, when we talk about fairness and like treating people fairly means treating them the way that they deserve or need to be treated. Like, it's not saying, hey, let's be fair and everyone gets a cookie. Like, maybe not everyone wants or needs a cookie. Like, or maybe not everyone wants or needs help on a particular issue. But the person that does, we should...
Yeah, like maybe one of the kids' dads like owns the cookie factory and he gets like 1,000 cookies every night just for dinner, you know? Like he probably doesn't want another cookie.
Yeah. So if we apply that to people and their the things that make them uncomfortable, like, we should take it on a case by case basis and say, you as whoever you are in your circumstances, to be fair to you, I'm going to accept that this is your traumatic thing. This is your trigger, quote unquote. And I'm going to do the best I can to not like make light of that for you. Now, if you have a friend who like was, and this requires a very strong dialogue. Like, you need to be comfortable talking about these things, first of all, for this to work. Say you've got your one friend who was bullied in the 4th grade. Let's just stick to that. Then you have another friend who was bullied in the 4th grade, but that friend, to him, it's not a big deal. It was just a phase in life. But to your other friend, that was a big deal. You should respect that friend to who it was a big deal. Even in the presence of that other friend who it wasn't a big deal, you should try your best to like keep that. Like, that's a biblical thing too. I'm sure that's in the Bible. Like, respect your neighbor. I think it's in Romans. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's like, don't be a stumbling block to your brothers. Like, you should, yeah.
Yeah. Like, before you try to. If you're like trying to pull planks out of people's eyeballs, like maybe do it in a way that's sensitive to how big the traumatic the plank is in their eyeball. I think Jesus might have said something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's a different part. They're talking about like the Gentiles who eat meat. It had something to do with meat and sacrifice. Like, if someone thinks that it's wrong to eat meat, then you should do your best to like not invite them over for dinner and serve them raw steak. Like, you should be sensitive to that and try to avoid triggering them. I guess you could say the Apostle Paul was talking about trigger warnings long before we got to now, because like he taught the same thing. Him and Jesus taught the same thing. Whoever thought we would get to talk about Jesus on this podcast? We'll have to bring in Brother Mac for this. Bring him out of retirement. All right.
Yeah, that Paul had some good ideas. I totally agree with you that like you shouldn't go out of your way to create a situation that makes people uncomfortable. Like, you shouldn't serve rare steak to your vegan friends. Like, that's just terrible. And I think there's a good. You made a good point that like, sure, you can eat steak in the privacy of your own home. Sure, Hey. There's
we
a
have
dog in
issues.
here that might be picked up on the recording. Hi.
Oh, I haven't heard a dog yet until you started yelling at it.
Okay.
Technical difficulty sign will put up. Beep.
Come on.
I mean, I guess if you're listening, it doesn't really matter. So I got to carry this conversation while he's wrestling that dog. I'm gonna go ahead and do you want to finish your thought, or should we go to the next response here?
I'm gonna finish my thought real quick.
Okay.
You made a good point, and that was you, even in the presence of your friends who don't have the same kind of sensitivities. Like, it's not tasteful, I think, to make light of people's sensitivities and insecurities, right? Like, it's not tasteful humor to make someone else the butt of your joke, especially to mutual friends. Like, but in general, yeah, like, I feel like I always try to find that positive humor in things that doesn't put anyone else down, and that's much more difficult, but it's much more rewarding. Like, I think this episode hasn't been quite as funny because we're trying to be so sensitive and respectful, and being funny while you're doing that's kind of hard. But if you do it, it's amazing. Like, everyone laughs, everyone has a good time, and that's great. That's what we want.
Jerry Seinfeld, the comedian, was notable for not using dirty words or like obvious dirty humor in his joke routines, because he thought that the comedians that did that were just kind of cheapening the practice, where it's better to be funny without like stooping to like just using, you know, trashy words to get the joke across. Anyway, that was that was just the thing.
It's easy, it's cheap.
Yeah, it's easy to make fun of people by saying lol triggered, but like to actually connect with another human being and have a dialogue with them, a meaningful like relationship, takes work, and usually your work is rewarded. So yeah. Next comment below that one is capital not N-O-T, not saying making fun of triggers is nice, but the meme didn't start because someone thought, hey, let's make fun of folks actually suffering from PTSD.
Yeah, that's not how the meme started, but that's kind of where the meme has gone. Making fun of triggers certainly isn't nice. I think we can all agree about that when you're making fun of triggers, you're making fun of people who are triggered. You're making them the butt of your joke, and you're making their sensitivity, you know, you're poking at a very sensitive spot. And you're like, oh, isn't it funny how much this hurts when I poke you? It's so funny.
Yeah.
Sure. And like I said, like, I don't think that PTSD is like this black and white line where we can say like, oh yeah, this counts as real trauma, but this doesn't. Like, it's all relative, dude.
Yeah, that's a funny thing too. It's like, where do you draw the lines in a lot of things? I mean, not just PTSD, but this is a lot of these concepts I feel like are lost on today's up and coming memers, because it's just things that aren't taught in school, and most of these people go to school, right? So like, this sort of dialogue does not happen in school, grades K through 12, and everyone in school is forced to be there, otherwise there are legal repercussions. And with the inability to make an effective dialogue with another human being, like combined with the fact that there's 20-something people in every class, like it's just easier to take the low road and make fun of things instead of thinking about the consequences of your words. And of course, this meme didn't start out, hey, let's make fun of folks with PTSD, but that's where it's become, because that's the least common denominator. Well, we can weaponize this and just use it for our own humor while we're passing time in school, and post about it on all our favorite websites, and we'll get a few goofs and gaffs and laughs, and it'll be a good time. Meanwhile, I don't know, we'll call him Billy. Billy goes home, and instead of posting funny memes on Reddit, he cuts himself. like
yeah, that's not again, like, that's not a funny joke, but that is a reality that's like shit, like, you don't want to, like, yeah, like, you're having a laugh with your asshole friends, and, like, meanwhile, like, you cause someone serious psychological harm, and some people resort to physical harm when that becomes too overwhelming, and that's not good at all. No, we
Yeah.
don't want that.
No, and I would say here's a bit of a devil's advocate, I guess. Like, here's how I think the situation would play out. If you confronted that group of people that was just slinging the memes like crazy, the triggered memes like crazy, and inadvertently, like, causing mental anguish to someone else, and you said, "Hey, it's not very funny. Like, you shouldn't be doing that," and the response might be, well, Billy never told us that it bothered him. Like, so how it's his fault that he didn't, let us know that it was bothering him. But then I would say, well, if Billy let you know that it was bothering him, what would you have done? Probably would have just went on with your memeing and said, screw you, Billy. Like,
yeah, like, the joke was that you were poking at his sensitivity, right? Like, the joke, like, if Billy told you, like, this is what I'm sensitive about, like, at that point he's inviting bullying, because, like, you're
because
like,
he's weak.
This isn't about weakness and strength, right? This is about Billy isn't weak because he's sensitive to bullying, and because you're an asshole who bullies him about being sensitive to bullying. No, like, it's an issue of, do you recognize that your humor, haha, chuckle fuck humor, is coming at the expense of someone else's emotions, right? Like, humor doesn't have to be a zero-sum game where, like, you have to put someone down to make yourself happy and, like, be and, like, I don't know, like, I guess in school this happens because people are still, like, trying to connect with other people, right? Bullies are trying to connect with other bullies, and that's how, like, they make friends, is by shitting on other people.
I mean, yeah, if you're around a certain type of people, there's what's the saying where, like, you are the total of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So, like, if you're forced to be with certain types of people and you say, hey, they're cool, well, of course you're going to keep being like them. And this, like, we should make another episode just about school and the problems of school. But, like, one of the problems of school is that you're forced to be around certain people, and peer pressure is a very real thing. And school does not equip children or young adults to have meaningful dialogues. It just doesn't. That doesn't happen. You're there to receive information and pass a test. That's pretty much what school is these days. There's no meaningful dialogue happening. So, of course, you go to the lowest common denominator, and you just have bullies. You have the bullied, you have the triggered, you have the this, and you have the that. It's dumb.
Yeah. They should have put meaningful dialogue on the test. Like, why isn't the test just like, all right, now we're all going to have a meaningful dialogue and go.
Yeah, and that's another problem with school, like, because you're forcing people to be somewhere they don't want to be. So if you try to actually teach them something useful, are they really going to listen? I don't know. I don't think so, but that's another topic for another day. Maybe we can move on to the final comment here. This is a doozy.
Ooh, this is a little bit of a slog. Let's hit me with that final comment.
Commenter says, it's the same reason people can't take the concept of safe spaces or harassment seriously, because nowadays those things mean nothing thanks to overreacting, immature 20-year-olds.
Oh, yeah, I can't take a safe spaces seriously. Like, oh my god, who needs a safe space? Just be an adult. Why don't you just be an adult and stop overreacting? And then, like, why do we even need safe spaces? Because, like, I should just be able to say whatever I want, and I should just be able to offend whoever I want, and then you just have to put up with it. Because, like, Who needs safe spaces? I just should be the biggest asshole that I want to be.
Whoa.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah,
if you get triggered, that's your problem.
Oh, it's your fault.
Be mature!
Whoa, clip the microphone there. You done scared the children away.
No, like the okay, so the hypocrisy here of someone like groaning that immature people should just grow up. Like, you can't exercise self-control and respect enough to just like make all the spaces around you safe by default. Like, you're the reason why we need safe spaces. This commenter is the reason why safe spaces are necessary, because this commenter doesn't believe in safe spaces. Like, that's the kind of asshole that is the reason why safe spaces are a thing.
Yeah. Well, Alec, don't you think that the term safe spaces is kind of pretentious and like meaningless and stupid? Like, you got to agree with that, right? It sounds like they're so special. They get their own safe space. That's pretty lame of them. I want my harmful spaces. I need to be harmed all the time. Can I have some harmful spaces?
Can I get some raw fucking spaces? Yeah,
I hope there was a hyphen in
bleeped
there.
a couple times in this podcast.
Well, I haven't done it yet, so.
Yeah, let's just keep that laissez-faire editing attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, how much of that comment is serious, Ryan? Because I'm not sure how serious you're being.
Oh, none of it is. That's why I changed my vocal tone so that it sounded more like I was this commenter. Yeah. But no, it's another instance of shifting the blame and everything to the people that are the triggered ones. Like, it's all their fault. So, like, I don't have to worry about what they're feeling or thinking. I just have to do me. I'm going to be me, and if I offend you, well, tough luck. This is America. I can do what I want.
Yeah, it's America, and if it becomes Trump's America, then everyone can just grab anyone by the pussy, and then like.
Whoa! See, that's
hey.
There might be some editing there, man. Whoa.
Did I go too far? Is this? I don't know. This episode is going to go up after Election Day, actually. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm wondering, what is today? We're recording this on a Wednesday. We might have it up there. Maybe you should wait till Tuesday, Election Day, and you can listen or watch this while you're watching the election results. How about that? There you go.
Yeah, that one little bit of like political relevancy is going to come in like right when Pennsylvania declares where their electoral votes are going. Yeah. And then you'll be like, oh, wow, there's actually some relevance in this podcast to what I'm seeing right now with the election results.
That's what you call good planning. Yeah, I feel like we've done a pretty good job on covering these comments, unless you have something to add here, like.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's obvious to all of our viewers and listeners why safe spaces are a thing, because the little Jimmy memers in the world who say whatever they want to get a laugh, don't care about the consequences, are complete assholes. Should not be in the same space where we're trying to have a respectful, civil dialogue about sensitive topics. Like, yes. That's real. Like, safe spaces are necessary.
Mm-hmm. Nuanced dialogue.
Nuance!
It's been a while since I said that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can we just keep talking about getting triggered, and I just want to keep talking about it.
Yeah, I'm going to go on to the next slide. What's next? Oh my gosh, it's Samuel L. in the movie Pulp Fiction say triggered one more goddamn time.
Say it one more goddamn time. I think we've said triggered and trigger warning enough in this episode. We're going to have to put like 60 trigger warnings up at the top of this.
Yeah, if anyone in the comments actually wants to count the number of times that we've said triggered or the word nuanced or dialogue, that would be all great. I mean, have fun with it. Make it a game.
Yeah, if there's any point where we said nuanced and we didn't do a little I mean, we just said it twice now at the end. So, we got those in. Yeah, please let us know, and then we'll have to shout at ourselves and be more on point with the word of the day next time.
Yeah. Well, parting thoughts. What are our parting thoughts? I'm not going to look up like the Google Trends for this triggered thing because to me, in my everyday experience, I know this is still very relevant. Like, this is probably going to be a relevant thing for a long time to come, just because of the topics involved with lol triggered, with the gender and the trauma and the whatnot. The whatnot. Am I marginalizing it by calling it the whatnot? Is that not allowed? See, like you can't say anything these days without someone getting triggered.
I don't think anyone's offended by your use of the whatnot.
It's the whatnot.
I feel like this is the quintessential Jimmy Memer meme. Like, I feel like this is exactly the kind of discussion that we need to have with memers to talk about the fact that just because you want to have fun on the internet doesn't give you license to be a jerk. That, like, people having sensitivity and people having trauma in their lives is real, and making fun of that might add more bullying and hate and terribleness to the world. And can't we all just get along? Can't we just have fun with our memes for once? For once.
Yeah, just for once.
Come on. For once, let's just do a fun. Can our next episode just be a fun old meme, just like a goofball meme, and let's just get all fun and goofy with it.
We might have to balance this one out with a very lighthearted talk next week. I guess with that being said, I don't really have much to add. I feel like we did this justice, social justice.
I feel like
I'm not going to go there.
I feel like we combated our weaponized memes with our shield of social justice.
Yeah, let's make that a hashtag too. Weaponized memes. Hashtag weaponized memes.
Hashtag
don't weaponize memes. Wait, that's what it should be.
Yes.
Don't weaponize.
No weaponized memes. We said no. So this has been Memeingful Discourse. Please leave a comment. Like this video if you did like it. I mean, you don't have to like it, but if you liked it, you should click the like button.
Yeah, I mean, even if you dislike it, hitting that dislike button is still audience engagement.
That's feedback.
It's still good.
That's important information. That's vital information for us.
Yeah, man, if you don't like it, let us know. I guess that's it for me. I'm Ryan, and
I'm Alec.
Yep, we didn't change our names from the beginning to the end, so that's good.
Still the same people.
Still the same people. All right, cue the music, which is probably already playing. So
roll credits.
And here we go, wrapping it up in 3, 2, 1, bye.